I'm going to show you how to make a shawl closure using 2 buttons. Here I have a shawl that I could use a shawl pin with, and I'm just showing you the close-up of the front of the shawl. So what I can do is use a decorative button and a plain button, sew them together with a shank in between, and I'll show you how to do that. And then rather than try to get this button through the front, I can button it backwards. So I can use this small button. It's a little bit awkward, but I can button through this one layer here, and then button through the other layer, like this, and there I have my shawl closure. So how do I make this type of back-to-back button with space in between? To do this, I'm going to need a few supplies. I need my decorative button. In this case, I have a metal button with 2 holes, and it's curved. It doesn't matter whether it has an unusual shape or style because it's not actually going through a buttonhole. And then I have a plain button. In this case, I'm using this kind of, I guess this is about an inch big button. I'm also going to need something to use for a spacer when I create the shank in between. So I will be putting that in between these 2 buttons while I sew them together. You can use a double pointed needle, you can use a big tapestry needle, you can use toothpicks, anything that's going to create a bit of space in between these 2 buttons. You'll also need some thread or embroidery floss or even yarn, something that will go through the holes of both buttons at least 2 or 3 times. I'm going to be using sewing thread to demonstrate, and I'm going to be using green. Normally I wouldn't use green, but I want you to be able to see it, so I'm going to be using this green sewing thread. I'm going to thread my needle. I'm just using a regular sewing needle. This sewing needle is pretty large, makes it easier for me to thread. Then, because I'm using this thin sewing thread, I am going to double it. So I have 2 layers of thread here, and just tie a knot with both of them doubled. So there I have my doubled sewing thread, and I'm going to put my spacer in between these 2 and go ahead and sew through from the right side to the wrong side of one button and leave a little tail here. You'll see what happens here in just a moment. And then work from wrong side to right side of my front button, my decorative button, and then come back down through there. Whoops, it's a little tricky right at the beginning. And then back from wrong side to right side through my backing button. So there we go. I still have this little tail here. If I pulled on this yarn or this thread, that would come all the way through. So to secure this, I'm going to put my sewing needle between those 2 strands and give a little pull. And if I have a nice knot there where where I tied them together, then that will stay. So now I'm just going to keep sewing through both layers, sewing these buttons together like this with my spacer, my wooden needle here in between. I'm going to do that, I don't know, 2 or 3 times. Sewing thread, I can do it a lot more times. With yarn or embroidery floss, you may not be able to do it so many times. And now when I come back from the front, I'm just going to come up through the center, you see, like that. Because now I need to create my shank. And how I'll do that is I will wrap the yarn around this back button. So I'm just going around and round and round. It depends on how much yarn or thread I have. And after a while, I'll be able to pull out my spacer here. When I've wrapped this thread around as many times as I think makes sense, I can come back from the center up to this back button, back down again, and now how am I going to fasten off this thread? That's always the trick. A lot of times I will just work through that wrapped part. I'm using the sharp needle to actually work through that little, I guess you'd call it a knot that I made in the shank, and I'll go back and forth through this several times. If that doesn't seem secure enough for you, if you have other ideas, I'd love to hear how you fasten this off. This is really quick and easy to do, so if it does start getting loose or coming undone, you'll have plenty of notice and you can just make another one in just a couple of minutes. So now I've secured that thread. I'm going to cut it, and there I have my closure with my shank in between. So now when I've used a button that is too large to fit through that hole I showed you at the beginning, I can just choose another piece of my lacy shawl here that's a little bit larger. So maybe I'll use this space and button backwards through here, and maybe button backwards through this one. And there we go. This is a great way to replace a shawl pin or use instead of a shawl pin, especially on lacy garments, but you can also use it anytime you have a big or strange shaped decorative button and you're trying to figure out how to make a buttonhole for it. You can use this type of closure instead. If you'd like more instruction like this, subscribe to my YouTube channel. Check out the links in the video notes for more ways you can find me. Thanks for watching.